have Romney, who is unwilling to say he supports even equal pay legislation. And Obama, who has been quite fervent, I would say, about supporting, equal pay. But in either case, what is not yet part of the culture is an understanding that equal pay for female human beings in this nation would be the single greatest economic stimulus this nation could ever have. If we had equal pay for comparable work, there would be $200 billion more in the economy every year. $200 billion, okay? The average white woman would receive about $140 more every week. The average woman of color would receive almost $300 more a week. I mean, it is huge. And it is the best economic stimulus because those women are going to spend that money. They are not going to invest it in China. They are not going to send it to the Cayman Islands. Nope. They are going to spend that money and create jobs. So whether we're thinking about violence against women, which is still endemic in this country as well, we should understand that even by FBI statistics, if you count the number of women who have been murdered by their husbands or boyfriends since 9/11, all of them, and then count up everybody who was killed in 9/11, all the Americans killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, more women have been murdered by their husbands and boyfriends than by all those things combined. Wow. And it's still the case on the average that a woman who kills in self-defense, at least we've all struggled to get a self-defense plea, yes, which wasn't present before when it came to, I mean, there wasn't even a word called domestic violence, it was just called life, And so, yeah. So we do have self-defense now as a legitimate plea. But women who kill in self-defense in that situation are still getting a longer sentence on the average than men who kill their partners. Okay. So there are no borders in this world that stop any of this. The borders don't stop polluted air or poor people or refugees or, the whole idea of national borders is a fiction. And it's actually a new fiction, because it used to be the case that, for 95% of human history, there were migratory paths that covered the globe like lace. And there were more interesting places where these paths crossed, and they became trading posts and so on. So I really think that thanks to technology and thanks to a greater understanding of the smallness of this spaceship Earth that we love so much, we are going back to, in a new way, we're going back to the idea, the understanding that we are all connected and there's no such thing as an artificial line drawn in the sand. Right now, I just want to read you my little litany here because I just so want you to go out and recruit, and you're going to vote, and you're going to recruit other people to vote. When I was at Palm Beach County Community College and afterwards, it made me think about the race of Harriet Woods against Danforth for the Senate in the state of Missouri, because I had worked in that campaign, and it was a profoundly memorable campaign. There were only about 2,000 voters, I think, that made the difference. And Harriet Woods was a very extraordinary candidate who was a homemaker who got into politics. Here's a great politics story, because there was a sewer cover on the street outside her house, and when cars went over it, because it was loose, it made a big noise and it woke up her children. That was why she got into it. And then she had a radio show, and she got elected to the state legislature, and she became this absolutely great candidate, wonderful, wonderful candidate. She was pro-choice, which was supposed to be very difficult in Missouri, viewed as an anti-choice state. In fact, she was winning. She was winning even in a part of Missouri called Little Dixie, you know, because it was so conservative. And she was running against John Danforth, who had been an Episcopalian priest. He had been Attorney General of the state, and he was the heir to the Purina, Walston Purina fortune. Okay, it was like running against the entire patriarchy all by yourself. And she was winning, you know, she was winning. And at the last moment, a huge number of negative ads came in with a lot of money that distorted her record, and she did not have the money to respond. This became the source of Emily's List, Early Money is Like Yeast, which you know, is a hugely successful, influential political action committee now. It was because of this race. All right, so she lost by something like, it was less than 1%, something like 2,000 votes. And therefore, Danforth went to Washington and took with him a man named Clarence Thomas, who had been a lawyer for Monsanto. I guess he was, you know, defending genetically changed seeds or something, I don't know. And they had a very interesting relationship, which somebody should write a whole book about, which I don't quite understand, because he also had studied to be a Catholic priest. He had all the same combination of state and church that Danforth had. Okay, so he went to Washington with Danforth on his staff and was present there, visible in Washington as that very valuable political thing, someone who belongs to a group and is willing to go against its majority opinion. Sort of like Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
Right. So he was made head of the EEOC, where he proceeded to dismantle the EEOC by you know, doing away with class actions and so on. And where he made the entire staff read the Fountainhead. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is terrible. That's weird and creepy.
And then he was visible to be put on the Court of Appeals, and of course, then he was a visible person to replace the great civil rights advocate Thurgood Marshall on the Supreme Court. And we all know, you know, what happened after that. All right, that meant that he was on the Supreme Court to be the the decisive vote that said that there would not be a recount, there could not be a recount in Florida. There was no uniform standard. That was the reason. Now, as it turns out, the counts afterward discovered that with any uniform standard, Gore won the popular vote. And it had been a century since anybody had gained the presidency without the popular vote. So he won the popular vote, in fact, but given the what happened here in terms of
Michigan.
You know, the vote itself, it turned out, as we know, that Bush won by, what, 567 votes or something like that. In theory, not in fact. In theory, right. Okay. If all of this, this is the nail, the horseshoe, the horse, and the battle, all right? If those 2,000 votes had gone to Harriet Woods instead, that was the nail, right, that led to the horseshoe, that led to the horse, that led to the battle. And because of those 2,000 votes, here's what happened, or if it hadn't been for those 2,000 votes, then Bush couldn't have caused the biggest transfer of wealth from public to private hands in the history of this country, or yet another optional war in Iraq, or high-level disbelief in global warming, or public schools with abstinence-only sex education enforced by federal funding, which gives us now the highest rate of unwanted pregnancies in the entire developed world, or an executive order giving billions of our tax dollars to faith-based centers of right-wing political power. And incidentally, this amount of money has never been, nobody knows, the New York Times can't find out how many huge amounts of money by executive order. Bush did it by executive order, it never went through Congress whatsoever. And it certainly was in direct opposition of the separation of church and state. Or the global gag rule that deprived poor countries, as Joseph, as you were saying, of U.S. foreign aid, and penalized countries that offered even information on abortion, even with their own money, or corporate profiteering on privatized prisons at home, or a higher percentage. I mean, once you've convinced the state legislature to build a prison somehow, it's going to create jobs, and business interests want it, you have to fill the prison. Yep. So now we have a higher percentage of our population in prisons than in any other country in the world, and it is so profoundly overbalanced to young men of color, hugely overbalanced, and many women as well. That's gone up 800%, incidentally, the number of women in prison. Or corporate CEOs whose salaries rose from 30 times the average worker before the right-wing backlash took over Washington to an average of 1,000 times the average worker. Or an unregulated financial industry that led to a worldwide economic meltdown that increased divisions in this country and around the world between rich and poor, and we probably could go on from there. And this is what happened because of the lack of a couple of thousand voters in Missouri, really. So this is the power that we all have. And we all have it in this country, but I have to say that in Florida, it's multiplied. Each of you has even more power because of the importance of this state. Obama could, if Obama wins Florida, Obama could lose 7 other states and still win.
Wow.
Because, and you got 2 more electoral votes since I was at Palm Beach County Community College, right? There is nothing on earth more important than this, and I hope that you will feel this power and figure out how you can use it between now and the election. Each one of you is a trusted messenger to people who know you. And there's nothing in political life more important than a trusted messenger. And with by any measure, this room and those of us who are in it right now could make the difference in the next 4 years in this country and in the influence of this country around the world.
But are they going to be counted?
But are they going to be counted? I know, I'm saying that's why, I mean, there has been a lot of effort and a lot of court challenges, and we've succeeded on all the court challenges. But I am saying be alert. We not only have to vote, we have to fight to vote. I agree, right.
Our ballots were misprinted.
The ballots were, yes. All right, but we're not going to say if we say we are defeated now, we're defeated. Yeah, okay, right. Okay. Right.